Hey guys, thank you for joining. This is Salty Investigations. My name is Chris. We go over crime cases, current cases, cold cases, unsolved cases. I even love to dive into retro cases, serial killers. Tonight, I'm going to keep a promise, which I told you that I would go through the timeline of the Idaho murders. So we are going to dive into this tonight. I want to give you the full feeling of what the timeline was. Let's get into it. Moscow, Idaho, a small town tucked away into the rolling hills on the edge of Washington border. And it's a kind of college town where students walk to class through wheat fields, where families, they know their neighbors, and where violent crime is almost unheard of. Like for years, this was a safe, quiet community. That would all change on November 13th, 2022. To understand the impact of that night, we first need to know the victims, because this is more than a story of just a crime. It's a story of 4 young souls that were taken way too soon. The first one that I want to talk about tonight is Kaylee Gonzalez. 21 years old, she was set to graduate in just a few weeks with a degree in general studies. Kaylee was ambitious. She was full of energy. And she had just purchased a new car, and she had her job lined up in Texas, a future mapped out. Plans for an adventure with her lifelong best friend, Maddie Mogan. Kaylee was also the kind of daughter who called home every single day. Her family described her as fierce, funny, and determined to succeed. Now let's move on to Maddie Mogan. Madison Mogan, also known as Maddie, also 21 years old. She and Kaylee had been inseparable since middle school. Best friends who people often thought as sisters. Maddie was a marketing major working hard at the University of Idaho while also balancing all the friendships, sorority life, and plans for her future. Friends described Maddie as loyal and caring, the type of person who lit up a room when she walked into it. Maddie and Kaylee were roommates, and their bond was so tight it seemed unbreakable. Now let's move on to Xana Kernodle. Xana was 20 years old, outgoing, vibrant, and always ready with a laugh. Xana was studying marketing. She lived at King Road House with Kaylee and Maddie, and she was dating Ethan Chapin. And that night, the two had been together at the Sigma Chi party. Friends say that Xana was a magnetic personality. She loved to dance. She loved her friends. And she was always someone that everybody naturally gravitated towards. Last one that we're going to talk about is Ethan Chapin. So Ethan Chapin was also 20 years old. He was one of 3 triplets. Ethan was a freshman studying recreational sports and tourism management. He had also a close bond with his brother, Hunter, and his sister, Maisie. And he had quickly built a circle of friends at college. Ethan was known for being easygoing, athletic, down to earth. And he and Xana had been dating for months, and the two were rarely seen apart. These 4 students had their entire lives ahead of them. They were building memories, working on their degrees, and putting forth an effort to have a great future. But in the early hours of November 13th, that all changed. We're going to rewind a little bit, and we're going to go back to that night step by step, minute by minute. November 12th, 2022. It's the last night all of these friends get to be together. That evening, Ethan and Xana go to a Sigma Chi party, which is literally just like minutes away from King Road. They spent the night with friends, drinking and laughing and just enjoying the weekend, like we all do. Meanwhile, Kaylee and Maddie are downtown at the Corner Club, a popular hangout spot for all the students in Moscow. Surveillance footage shows them just moving easily in the crowd, talking with friends, and just having a great time. Nothing was unusual about that night. To them, it was just like another Saturday night. Took on a friend with them, Jack Showalter, and they started walking towards the grub truck to get some food. This food truck is a staple in Moscow nightlife. It's parked downtown, and that night it's live streaming on Twitch. The girls are caught on camera chatting, waiting for food. Behind them, students mill about, some intoxicated, some laughing, all unaware of how significant this footage is going to later be. This footage is the last known footage of Kaylee and Maddie alive. About 1:56 a.m., after ordering their food, the two catch a ride home with a private party. Some are winding down, some are getting ready for bed, but no one inside that house knows that their lives are about to change because they are going to come in contact with a savage killer. Between 2:26 and 2:52 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie place several calls to Kaylee's ex-boyfriend. Repeatedly, the phone rings, no answer. Investigators would later confirm that he was asleep at the time and not connected to the crime. But those calls become a very chilling piece of the timeline. Guys, we all seen the footage, the body cam footage of Idaho the day after the murders, and we can all see how quiet that house is. So imagine it at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the only person that's up moving around is going to be Xana. So as the house goes quiet, something else is happening around 3:30 a.m. Ring camera in the area is starting to pick up footage of a white Hyundai Elantra circling again and again around the King Road residence. Investigators would later describe this as very unusual behavior. The car doesn't stop, it doesn't park, it just does a loop and exit repeatedly. Let's go through the timeline of when the white Elantra can be seen in the ring camera footage right next to King Road. Starts at 3:30 a.m. You can see the white Elantra come in, go up King Road, and then at 3:33, you see it exit. So he's only staying there for a few minutes, right? So he's not parking, he's not stopping, he's continually looping. Then you see him come back in at 3:38 a.m. and leaves at 3:40. So there's 2 minutes. Then at 3:46, we see the DoorDash driver. The DoorDash driver comes in at 3:46 a.m. and at 3:51, you can tell that she's lost, and you can see her actually walking next to the house that is recording all of this with a flashlight. As she's walking, you see at 3:56, you see that white Hyundai Elantra come back up the road. It leaves at 3:58. Another 2-minute loop. At 4 a.m. on the dot, you see the DoorDash driver leave. She obviously found the house, so she left. And we can confirm this in the video. The white Elantra is seen entering again at 4:05 a.m. The car turns around at 4:06. So it does a loop and then it comes down and turns around. And it almost looks like it's trying to back into the house that is actually recording the activity. So he goes to the end of the road, turns around and comes back up King Road. And that time is recorded at 4:07 a.m. We have to remember that that car would have to go up the hill, around the corner, park, and then him walk through the back area to get through the sliding glass door. That would probably take a minute. So I'm going to give it a good maybe 4:08, maybe 4:08:30 to walk into the house. So he's probably all prepared, ready to go. That's the timeline that I'm going to go with. So as he enters the house, he goes straight upstairs. So remember, at 4 o'clock in the morning, Xana received her DoorDash order. She comes down, retrieves her food, and then goes back upstairs, believed to have went to her room and was on TikTok and eating her food. I know we had a lot of questions like, hey, did she even get to eat her food? But yes, so of the food that was eaten, there was some French fries left that were placed on the microwave. So let's just say Xana goes to her room. Okay. The killer comes in through the sliding glass door. My belief is that he left that door open because he wanted an easy escape. So he sneaks upstairs. He goes right upstairs to, maybe he looked in Kaylee's room, seen Murphy and seen that there was no person in the bed. So he starts walking over to Maddie's room. And then we all know what happens. When he goes in there to Maddie's room, I believe that he attacked Maddie first. What he did when he did the attacking, he wanted to make sure that he silenced them. He didn't want them screaming. He didn't want them drawing attention to him. So he went straight for the lungs and he went straight for the liver, and he made sure that they could not have the air to scream. I believe they were both in bed, asleep. Of course, Maddie, I believe she woke up when she was being attacked, and then the bed shaking, the bed had to be shaking, right? So when the bed is shaking, I believe that Kaylee woke up and sat up in the bed, because actually behind the bed or beside the bed where Kaylee was sleeping, you can see blood splatter right there. It looks like there's even nicks in the wall where he was attacking her. She had nowhere to go. She had a wall in front of her. She had a wall beside her. And the only way she could get out was the foot of the bed. And he was blocking that. I mean, holy shit. How terrified could she have been that night? And then I feel like while he's doing what he's doing, Xana is pretty much done eating. Maybe her French fries were cold. I don't know. Maybe she wanted to go heat them up because they didn't get tossed. The bag was left on the counter in the kitchen. But I believe that Xana walked into the kitchen to take her trash and to maybe warm up her food. And I believe that she spotted the door open. Now, we know that that place is very quiet because we've seen it on the body cam coverage. It was eerily quiet. So the noise would have had to carry through the entire house. At that moment, I believe that Xana heard the noise upstairs. What the killer was doing to Kaylee at that moment was horrific. He tried to strangle her. He knocked her teeth out. What he did to her face made her unrecognizable, made her face deformed. That's how bad he went after her. In the middle of all of what he's doing to Kaylee, I believe that noise, Xana heard it. She maybe laid her fries on top of the microwave, and I believe she walked upstairs. She had no idea that her friends were being slaughtered. No, she just heard noises and was like, hey, I wonder what they're doing up there. I better go check on them. Xana was a good friend. She was checking on her friends. So I believe that Xana went up and got to the top of the stairs and could see in that room, but only a black silhouette. I don't believe she heard any more noise when she got to the top because I feel like that he had already done the damage. But as soon as he seen her, he didn't even think, oh my God, where's my sheath? Because he had his focus on Xana. I have got to get her before she calls the police or brings more attention to me. I believe that she seen him. She got freaked out. She got scared. She ran down the stairs. And I believe wholeheartedly that he was on her heels so close that when she got into close to her room, he got her before she got to her room. She didn't even have time to shut the door. Think about that. There was 4 blood droplets on the outside of her room on the wall. I believe that's where the attack started. She turned around to probably shut the door, and he just busted in and just started wailing her. So she had lung laceration. This is what was fatal to Xana. She had a lung laceration. What does that tell you? That tells you that he was trying to silence her. He did not want her to have air to scream. Now, I know Dylan's statement, she said that she thought that was Kaylee running down the stairs and saying someone's in here. I believe fully that that was Xana. And she was running away from her attacker because she witnessed what happened. She witnessed what he was doing. She couldn't see him. She could see the silhouette, but she knew something was really bad wrong. As he was chasing her down the stairs, I personally feel like, I could go either 2 ways on this. Okay. Either Dylan heard him say, you're going to be fine. I'm going to help you. Or she was remembering what she was watching the night before, which was Vampire Diaries, right? And there was an episode and a scene where a woman fell and she was crying and the guy said, it's okay, I'm here to help you. That could have been something. I don't know. Who knows? When he starts attacking Xana, mainly most of her 50 plus wounds were defensive. She had cuts on her face. She had cuts in between her fingers that were deep because she just kept trying to grab the knife to stop the attacks. And at 4:17 a.m. on the Ring camera video, you can hear what sounds like Xana saying, "Ethan, help me." You can hear it. And then you hear a thud. You hear her fall to the floor, and she fell back on her back. Now, my belief is at that moment when she fell, Brian thought he had disabled her, but she was crying. This was at 4:17 a.m. And I feel like that is when he went to attack Ethan, because she was yelling for Ethan to wake up. Ethan was probably starting to stir. What's going on? What is this noise? And then he was just pounced on immediately. Now, Ethan was attacked. I think it was on the left side. So maybe he was laying on his right side when he was attacked. I'm not really for sure how that all played out, but he ended up on his back in the bed, kind of catty-cornered in the bed. His head was between the mattress and the wall. So that's why we seen the blood on the outside of the house, because it was right where he was. I believe after he attacked Ethan, he went back and finished Xana. Now, there was a handprint on the chair in her room, and it appears like she was maybe trying to get up, and he made sure she never got up again. Personally, I think that he probably had something on his shoes. He took something off of his shoes before he exited the house. But you have to remember, people are saying, well, why isn't there blood trails all over the house? If he went from Kaylee and Maddie all the way down to Xana and Ethan, why was there not a blood trail? Because blood dries really fast when it's splotted. Okay, so it's going to dry fast. But I believe that he had something on. I feel like, number one, he had a bodysuit on. He had gloves on, maybe something that, he wouldn't get hurt. And I feel like that there may have been another weapon that he used on Kaylee. Could have been a flashlight. Could have been anything, right? But I feel like he had it readily on him. I don't think he would have had time when he was attacking Kaylee to look around the room and see if there was anything he could, silence her with. I feel like he already had that on him. And like Kaylee's dad said, I feel like he had a kill kit. But I feel like that after he finished with Xana, you could hear Murphy barking. So Murphy knew something was up, and the poor dog was just absolutely terrified. Whether Kaylee's room was left open, he didn't get out. He did not leave that room. And it's so sad to see what he had went through. And you could see it in his little face, in the crime scene photos. I'm a fur mommy, so kind of heart, But I believe that Brian then exited the house. He had something on his shoes. He took them off and he walked. And as he's walking out, Dylan said she opens the door and she sees him walking towards her. That must have been terrifying. She said that, basically read different reports saying that he had a big nose, he had bushy eyebrows, he was tall, athletic, but not too athletic, kind of like a basketball player is what she was telling the police in the police body cam footage. But he was walking like around. Nobody ever said anything around the table. And we didn't even know that until we seen the crime scene photos, that there was a beer pong table there. Never any mention of it in the police reports. Nothing. People are saying, why didn't he attack her? I believe, number one, he was absolutely exhausted. Exhausted. I mean, try wrestling somebody. My boys used to wrestle. So try wrestling somebody for like 5 minutes and see how exhausted you are. The adrenaline that he was crashing. That's number one. Number two, I feel like at that time, with the noise that had been made, he did not realize that he was going to have such a battle with Xana. He was not going to have such a battle doing everything that he did in that house. I think that he planned on just coming in for Maddie, and everybody else was collateral damage. I feel like he would have really, really taken his time with Maddie had nobody else been there. That was his intention. But I feel like that he was afraid that she had called the police. So he was hauling ass out of there. He did not want to wait around. He did not want to have another attack under his belt and get caught. Went to his car, and then you can see on the Ring camera around 4:20 a.m. that car barreling out of the neighborhood. And you could hear the engine rev as he's going up the main road. I mean, he was flooring that car, and you could hear it. So he was scared that he was going to get caught. He felt like, oh, I've wasted too much time in here. I've spent way too much time, because in what, it might take 11, 12 minutes for what he just did, all the carnage that he left behind, all the souls that he took out of this world. For what? For an excitement? For what? Just to know what it feels like? And he destroyed not only their lives, but their families' lives. That's what he destroyed that night or that morning. It's awful. For what? Just a good feeling? That's what I don't understand. So yeah, I told you I'm a little salty, guys. So I might say something that, you know, here. So I want to get into the probable cause affidavit too, as well. So let's just go through this real quick, and I'm going to read this. So just bear with me, okay? According to the probable cause affidavit, at approximately 3:30 a.m., security cameras from around the neighborhood began documenting a suspicious vehicle, a white Hyundai Elantra. Model years between 2011 and 2013. I think they later upgraded that to a 2015. Making several passes around the King Road. Investigators would later count this car circling in the area no fewer than 4 times. He did it 4 times, and I just read it to you because it's on the camera. The driver appeared to be scouting the house, watching and waiting. Kaylee was really worried about somebody being in the fence line area, right in that little dense wooded area behind the house. Somebody was watching her. Somebody was watching her take Murphy out to potty. It freaked her out. There was even one incident on Halloween where all the students were outside on the back patio, just having a normal party for Halloween, right? And it was during the day, and Murphy took off. He left. And they said it wasn't like him to just run off and not come back when they yelled for him, but he wouldn't come back. Was the killer grooming Murphy, giving him treats? You know, doing something to kind of make it, hey, when I come in there and do what I'm going to do, you won't bark, right? Because you'll know me. So that's what I think that maybe he was doing. Now they're like, there's no proof of Brian being up there. No, there's not, because he probably shut his phone off, just like he did the night of the murders. There's different ways that he could be undetectable. He couldn't have taken his phone with him. Maybe he left his phone at home. Maybe he shut it off like he did the night of the murders, conveniently. You know, who knows? Who knows at this point? We don't know, because he won't speak. He's a coward now, see? Oh, but the night of the murders, he thought he was Ted Bundy. He did plead guilty, but wouldn't give any reason as to why he did what he did. What was his motive? Who knows? Because he won't talk. This crime scene was so horrific. So horrific. So Dylan, after the murders happened, she didn't know the murders had happened, but she knew it was around 4:20 a.m., almost 4:30 in the morning. She called Bethany. She tried calling Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana. Nobody would answer. She called Bethany, and she's like, nobody's answering the phone. This is really weird. And she ran, and Bethany was like, run down here. My phone's going to die. Run. And so she ran. And as she's running by, she said she took a glimpse of Xana on the floor and she thought she had passed out. There are lights on in the house, so the house wasn't completely dark. There were party lights, and the party lights were still on the next day. So you can see it illuminating that room. Well, how did Brian and Xana not hit that table and knock those cups over? Because they could see the party lights were on, pretty bright, because there was party lights on both sides of that living room. Against the wall, there was a ton of them. And then right over where the beer pong table was, you could see that there was a lot of party lights. Now, as far as, I don't know if Xana's door was cracked, if it was open a little bit, but she could see her. She said she did see her laying on the floor and she thought she was passed out. But honestly, I feel like she was way too scared to go check. It was 4:30 in the morning. She had already heard noises. She'd seen some strange guy in the house. She didn't know if he was still in the house. So she just wanted to get her ass down there to Bethany so she wasn't alone. She was scared. There was activity on Dylan's phone at all hours of the morning. So she was on her phone doing different things. And she did not sleep very well. So I think she was just kind of spooked, just kind of scared. Like, Now, Bethany did state that she heard a noise she thought was a firework. I did kind of debunk anything that could have been thrown over the railing of the stairs because it's all solid. It's a solid wall. There's no cracks where anything could fall down. And I showed that in one of the other videos that I did, but it would have had to have been right in front of her door or right there in that hallway on the first floor for her to see something. And I don't know what that would have been. I mean, maybe when Xana opened the door, maybe, the lights flashed from the DoorDash driver's car. Those were the lights that maybe she's seen. I don't know. I feel like Bethany did hear Xana fall. She could probably hear stuff being moved around up there because Xana's room was a mess. Xana was attacked so bad that the tables were moved. Everything was like, you could tell that there was an intense struggle in that room. The carnage that was left for the next morning, and Hunter had to see that. So when Hunter went up there, it was, the next morning when the girls called him, I heard that they were in their room. They were locked in their room. They were scared. And then Hunter came over. He walks up there. He looks. The girls are starting to follow him upstairs. He said it took him a minute to even register what he was even looking at because he thought, wow, they must have had a wild party last night, But then he got to look and he's like, oh shit. Call 911. Then he went in the kitchen and he got a knife. And then he went back in and he checked Xana's pulse. Now, as he's walking out, you can see right here, Mr. Nunez came in and checked on the unconscious person. You can see that the knife was not on the table. And then it reappeared when he told him to stay back. He did lay the knife on the table. There was like 3 bloody fingerprints on there because he checked Xana's pulse. There was so much blood. People are like, where's all the blood? Where's all the blood? I mean, I have never seen anybody that just wants to see a gore fest. I mean, why do you want to see all this blood? They blurred it out. You can't see it. You can see a little bit of it. Damn. Do you have to see like a blood fest? What is it that you want? It's like, shit. There was so much blood on Xana. Her face was covered. Her body was covered. She had cuts on her face. Her fingers were almost severed from fighting her attack. Why? Like she did, what, you don't believe that she bled? I mean, you don't believe that she was attacked? As he's walking back in there, so much blood on Xana that it still was wet 8 hours later. Was there a lot of blood? Yes. Do we need to see it all? No. They're not going to show us that. They are not going to show us all of that. Unredacted crime scene photos. They're not going to do that. If they do, they've been leaked. Tell me in the comments how you think about this. What do you feel about this case? What has stumped you on this case and kept you questioning? And I know you're going to say, okay, why didn't they call 911? Yeah, that stumped me too at first. But then after I watched the body cam footage and I heard from their friends and I read the police reports and I read everything, I was like, okay, all right, you got to realize they are young. At the time, they were young. They were just like a couple years over being a teenager. Honestly, to me, I'm 55. So they're just kids. College students, right? Probably been sheltered, never seen anything graphic in their life except on a TV show, never had any major trauma in their life. So for something like this to happen, they did not know what to do. And honestly, we can't judge them for how they reacted in an emergency situation, in a traumatic situation. I mean, we can't judge them for that because we don't know how we would react in that situation. I mean, hindsight's 2020. So now after it's over, we're like, oh, well, I would have done this. I would have done that. But in the heat of the moment, when you only have seconds to make a decision, would you have made the right decision? Put it in the comment section. Let me know. I know that's going to be the question. But I am going to end this. I hope that everything that I talked about makes sense. I definitely wanted to do this timeline and get this all set out for you because I promised I would, and now I have. So let me know what other questions that you have about this case, and we'll make sure to deep dive on it as well and try to get some answers to these questions that we've had for so long. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you like what you hear, it's going to get better. I'm still new. Make sure to subscribe and join me.